Good evening, everyone. I call this regular council meeting Tuesday, August 8th, 2023, 7 p.m. to order and to acknowledge we are on the traditional territory of the Stehas. Next item.
The next item is introduction of late items.
Actually, just before we get to that one, I apologize. I would actually, in light of the provincial wildfires and the drought conditions, the province here has lost 2 firefighters fighting for our lives and for just for us as human beings. And I'd like to play tribute to the 2 fallen firefighters. If I could just ask everybody for a minute of silence, please. Thank you, everybody. Next order of business, sorry.
The next order of business is introduction of late items.
So there was a letter. And
Sure.
it's hard to,
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, we can't hear you.
thank you.
Speak up.
I'll try and speak up.
Thank you.
Just introduction of late items, and there was a letter here from Megan Hart, and it's addressed to the mayor of Harrison Hot Springs here. So I just want to add it under new business. We can discuss that later. And I think that was it for the items. So I'm going to ask next order of business, please.
The next order of business is approval of the agenda.
The Chief Administrative Officer there.
Councillor Patrick.
Councillor Pascal.
Right to the motion.
No, not quite there yet.
Oh, sorry, I was ahead of the game, but mine. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, thank you. So at the request of the Mayor Wood to remove, we're proposing to remove correspondence letter. I don't have my glasses. I believe that's J.
Okay.
Sorry. The letter from Fire Chief Todd, he would like to remove this to speak to it at a different time and different place. And we have a letter under K from Mr. John Allen. At the request of the person named in that letter, he would like to have that removed from the agenda as well.
Thank you. Do I have a mover for the approval of agenda as amended?
May I ask why you're requesting Chief Todd's letter be removed from the agenda?
I think it would be a more appropriate discussion to have. There's parts in it that pertain that should be discussed in a closed meeting.
I don't agree.
Approval of the agenda as amended. Do I have a mover? Mover? Motion fails. I have approval of agenda as is. Moved by Councillor Jackson, seconded by Councillor Vascio.
Mayor Wood, may I just interject for a moment? Fire Chief Todd has requested that the letter, if there's any questions to that, to be moved to the top, because he has fire practice this evening, and he would like that addressed once everything is turned on.
Any discussion on the any issue with that, councillors?
Oh,
No, not at all.
Call the question, all in favor? Motion passes with the mayor opposed. Order of business, please.
The next order of business is adoption of council minutes.
Number A, that the regular council meeting minutes of July the 10th, 2023 be adopted. Do I have a mover?
move for adoption, Mayor
Moved by
Wood.
Councillor Passio, seconded by Councillor Vidal. Errors or omissions? Seeing none, ready to call the question, all in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Next item is B, and that's the special pre-closed council meeting minutes of July 13th, 2023 be adopted. Do I have a mover? Moved by Councillor Jackson, seconded by Councillor Vidal. Errors or omissions? Seeing none, call the question, all in favor? Councillor Jackson, I didn't quite see that.
Yeah.
Sorry, thank you. Motion passes unanimously. Next order of business, please.
The next order of business is business arising from the minutes.
Is there any business arising from the minutes? Seeing none, next order of business, please.
The next order of business is consent agenda, and there's nothing for this item. The next item is delegations and petitions, and again, nothing for this item. Next, we have correspondence. Item A is an email from Erla Legault dated July 2nd, 2023. Item B is a letter from Minister of Housing dated July 11th, 2023.
Right to our- sorry. I just want to think I'm going to just change this part here. So we don't read all these out. We got quite a few letters here. So I'm just going to move for receipt for all of these letters, and then on to the next order of business under discussion. When we can read each one out, and if there's business arising from them, we can deal with it. So the letters of correspondence, there's letters A to M. Motion is just for receipt of the letters.
Move receipt, Mayor Wood.
Ignacio, seconded by Jackson. Discussion on receipt. Ready to call the question, all in favor? Passes with the mayor opposed. Further business, please.
The next order of business is business arising from correspondence.
So this is, I want to go through one letter at a time here, and then we'll give each council an opportunity if there's business arising. I'll just read that.
Sure. You want me to read one at a time? We will start with item J, a letter from Fire Chief Todd dated July 27th, 2020.
Page
43, yeah.
Do you have any business arising from letter J? From the, yes.
Thank you, Mayor Woods. Just finding it, if you could bear with me for just a moment, that's page
43 in your agenda.
Thank you. I just wanted to offer a thank you to Chief Todd for this additional information and explanation. The letter spells out pretty accurately on what the information was that council requested from you. Clearly, our fire department members are well trained to the existing standards. And I have every confidence in yours and their ability to manage in the event of an interface wildfire should that occur. And I'm confident that you will work with other emergency services to mitigate potential damage to the village. And they ask that you pass that on to your members tonight at practice. Thank you.
Councillor, any other discussion on letters? Councillor Passio?
Thank you, Mayor Wood. Yeah, I'd like us to reiterate what Councillor Biden just said, that I'd like to thank Trevor Todd and the fire department for the outstanding work they do for the community, and to clarify some of the wrong comments that have been coming out of the social media and newspaper about our fire department and how we're protected. We're very well protected. The pleasure of speaking to a young lady last week who is either gone or is on standby to join members from the District of Kent to go and fight interface fires up country. And I congratulate her on doing such an outstanding work for our communities. There's people who are dedicated, who have had practice in interface firefighting, and they're well prepared to. Now, any emergency has its own different ways of dealing with them. And we're very lucky to have our neighbors to the south who are ready to help us along the way. If anything drastic happened in Harrison, Hot Springs, whatever the emergency would be. So again, Chief Todd, congratulations on the outstanding work that you're doing for our community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just the other day, the fire people came, I bought sprinklers for my roof and I had them installed. Did a great job, cost $225. Very great value for what I got. I've done a lot of research on this, and if you've never been on a firefight, if you've never been on the front lines, you don't really know what the heck is going on. When I did it, I was just 16 years old. I was shanghaied one night. And away we went for miles until I got in there. So I have deep respect for this. I don't have respect for people who write in our newspapers and disrespect our fire people. They're there when we need them. They do a tremendous number of calls. When people are in problems, we hear them all the time. And we just have to have a positive attitude for it. Thank you, Your Worship.
Here, here.
I just want to start with when I first received the when I first received the letter here, I just had some concerns when I read it. I want to assure you that if it was perceived in any other way, that as mayor and council, as you've heard, we all have the utmost respect for every single person that works for the fire department as a paid volunteer. They are the most highly respected individuals of this village. So I was just concerned here that there was some statements of saying possibly that there was some people that weren't assured of that. And believe me, my intent as mayor, and I brought it up in a few meetings, and that is to move forward and to get better. We can always get better. You and I, Chief, had a conversation 8 months ago, and this was about moving forward and moving with a full-time paid chief, and whether or not the chief was going to be as chief public safety coordinator, I'm not sure what the title was. But we've grown a lot in this village here, and things have changed. The densities are getting higher and higher. We are in unprecedented wildfire risks right now. So fire is obviously the first and foremost thing, I think, in everyone's minds. I'm going to talk about this again later in the mayor's report, but I believe that it's very important that we're as equipped as we can to fight all types of fires, whether it be structural, whether it be forest, or interface fires, I should say, or the other huge component, which is usually forgotten, is because we call it a fire department, your first responders. The many lives that you've saved or helped is commended, and everyone again that's on board that is involved in that. Again, my hats off to every single person that does that. I hear the ambulance go by my house almost on a regular basis, and I know you guys are already ahead of them. So it's, I know you guys are out quite a bit. So I really want to stress that, you know, I totally support what other council members said. There's no question that we've got a good crew, good fire department in place, but we could do better. We can always do better. The council are going into strategic planning. So one of the other things that you mentioned to me is possibly looking at, we may have to look at a bigger haul. These are all big ticket items. These are things that we need to be focused on in our strategic plans. If we're going to have to get ourselves a ladder truck, I mean, those are big dollar items, huge dollar items. So it's important that's in our strategic plan. And I believe that there's going to be something come forward in our development cost charges, which are going to start to put that cost onto the developer. So there will be money, so that you will have that equipment. Do we need a tanker vehicle? Well, I mean, we share the vehicle, which is in Kent. By the time it gets here, it's minutes. How many minutes? I guess it'll depend on what's happening. It depends on the priority. And it could be time. Maybe we need to have that type of equipment. I know there was some question here on the interface fire part of things. And I think that most of the concern is to do with the equipment and the plan in evacuating for such an event. And I think one of the biggest concerns again was, and it comes up over and over again, there is no plan for an evacuation in case of a wildfire. So that concerns a lot of people. I had spoken to our emergency planning coordinator who said it is the first on call who responds that deals with it. So these are the things I think that where we can do better. Is that the fire department's responsibility, or is it administration / coordinator or the emergency program coordinator's position? I don't know whose position it is. And I think we can all agree that we just want to be assured that we have the best resources put to what we can potentially face. It gives everybody some peace. The anxiety with the province being in this situation right now, it's pretty scary. So my brother-in-law's place was right downtown, or not downtown, right at the border of Osoyoos. So they were taking pictures at 2:30 in the morning of the wildfire that was just feet from his doorstep, you know, and that thing went through like just scary like hell. And he happens to be, or he's retired now, but he was, I believe it was a captain in the Osoyoos Fire Department. And, you know, it's something that even he couldn't possibly even imagine of how that went through. And luckily it went through and the wind blew the right way. But again, Chief, I want to assure you that my main goal is to get you the resources and the equipment that you need. I know there's been a little bit of talk here on the interface fire prevention initiatives, like the fuel management. Does it have anything to do with the fire department? Not really, but it is to do with fires. So that again goes back to that public safety, maybe the coordinator part. There appears to be some not large, but there appears to be some grant funding from the government, which is 100% paid for getting potentially a coordinator and for going in the east, not just the east sector lands. I'm talking all the lands, the forested lands in the village here. Clean it up, make it safe, make us this fire smart community. Again, I'm going to be bringing this up in the next month here in the strategic planning. But I just wanted to just touch base with it here on a few of the concerns. So I would just ask the chief, did you have any questions of me, sir?
No, we've talked several times and I'm sure we'll talk more. I don't really have any questions for you. I'd like to point out that we've got a fairly well-trained fire department. We've put 4 officers through engine boss training, which allows them to operate an engine with a full crew in a wildfire situation. It's extreme training for these people and they've done very well. We've since this started in 22 when we identified some gaps. We've since trained the entire hall on wildfire protection for in the village. So our structural protection is as good as any for our training level. And yes, you're right, we can always do better. That's why we train every Tuesday night and several weekends throughout the year. We strive to do better. I'm extremely proud of the crew of officers that we've got here in Harrison. I have not worked with a more dedicated crew than this. And anybody in the fire services that does this as a volunteer, paid on call or otherwise, it would be foolish to ever say that we didn't want to see a full-time person in the village. That's not our stance. If the village so wishes, there would be no way that the fire department would ever say that's not required. We believe that you have to move forward to whatever stance that's required. Is wildfire our biggest concern in the village today? With the weather we have, it is. But come fall again when the rains come, it's not. So the fire department has to plan accordingly by season. We train accordingly by season. We're never losing focus on what we're dealing with. I don't have any questions, but I could go on for hours about what this crew will do for this village. This past week, this crew has been out 9 times. That's a lot for a small town. And they're all here Tuesday night to practice yet again to make sure that if anything goes wrong in the village, that crew is here to maintain it.
Good, thank you. Discussion? Seeing none. On to the next letter, please. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief.
Yes, thank you.
We'll go back to item A. Email from Erlo Legault dated July 2nd, 2023 regarding crosswalks.
That's on page under that. Any discussion on that, Councilor? Mr. Pascal?
Just a quick comment there, Wood. We used to have the red flags on the crosswalks at the intersection of Hot Springs Road and Esplanade, the two east and west, the red flags, and they've for some reason they did get weathered out with the sun, and they appeared to give more attraction to the drivers when they approach the stop sign. But I'm only referring to those 2 crossings.
So, thank you.
So that's a start thing.
Any other discussion on that? Actually, I just had another email today on it's interesting, on the same crosswalks. And I know we had, when the RCMP had their open house a couple of months back, one of the main conversations were crosswalks. Crosswalks on Hot Springs Road, crosswalks on Lillooet here. I don't know if staff, I've never seen that, the copy of the agenda, if that made it to staff or not.
Early today, yes.
It
It didn't make it onto the agenda. You're more than welcome to speak to it, though. It relates to the crosswalk item,
And the one from the RCMP.
if you wish.
I can't recall what all was on that other crosswalks, but I would like to suggest this. I'd like to put a motion out that we refer this back to staff to come back to us and do a review of the RCMP recommendations on the crosswalks and these 2 crosswalks here, Miami River Drive, Hot Springs Road, and Springs Parks entrance, and Lillooet Street.
May I suggest that that's in combination with MOTI, because it is their right of way?
It would be up to staff to We're just gonna refer it to
Okay.
staff to comment on that.
Okay.
Do I would move that? Do I move that? Second by Councillor Passio. Any further discussion on that? Question, all in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Next item, please.
Item B is a letter from Minister of Housing in response to the letter of opposition to the Housing Supply Act.
Any business arising out of that letter? None. Next item, please.
Next item is item C, letter to Minister of Transportation and Infrastructure, Minister of State for Infrastructure and Transit, and Minister of Environment and Climate Change Strategy regarding insourcing Handy Dart.
Any discussion on business arising? Seeing none. Next item, please.
Item D is email from the Liquor and Cannabis Regulation Branch dated July 12th, 2023 regarding proposed amendments to the cannabis control regulation.
Councillor Passio.
Thank you, Mayor Wood. I'm totally against this, of course. And in our parks and park regulation bylaw, all our parks, children's areas and walking spaces are prohibited from smoking. That includes substance use as well. And we do have it on our big boards on the beach as well, no smoking. My only concern is everything depends on enforcement, and this is a bylaw enforcement. So I'd just like, with all respect to our bylaw officers, they have their work cut out. It's probably got a little bit better since the people have got used to the regulations for their barbecues and the tents and all that sort of thing. That's relaxed them a little bit, but I think that there has to be some control over the smoking. I mean, you're not even supposed to smoke. There are 2 restaurants that have posted signs on their railings, no smoking within 5 meters. Even the resort hotel now has put a sign, no smoking around the hotel grounds at all, except in a designated area. So what I'm trying to say is, Mayor, what is, I think we need to, our staff to, whoever it is, discuss with our bylaw enforcement head person and try to make them more aware and approach people and say, I'm sorry, you're not allowed to smoke in these areas.
Thank you. Any other discussion, Councillor Bidell?
Thank you, Mayor Wood. I do agree with Councillor Fascio's comments, but I would also like to make a motion. I believe that the deadline is August 11th, but authorize staff to write a letter back to the minister on behalf of council expressing our disappointment and our opposition to the proposed modification of places to consume cannabis.
Do I have a seconder for that? Seconded by Councillor, moved by Councillor Bidell, seconded by Councillor Jackson. Discussion. I don't know if a lot of people know what we're even talking about here, and this is amendments that our liquor control, which is now not liquor control, it's liquor and cannabis regulation branch. And they're proposing to remove the prohibition of promoting places to consume cannabis. And they want to remove the prohibition of consuming cannabis on patios. So I'm assuming they want to allow to smoke cannabis on patio decks is what they're trying to approve. So further discussion on this one here? Ready to call the question? All in favor of the letter? Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Councillor Bidell.
Yes.
Next letter, please.
Item E is letter from the Ministry of Forests dated July 12th, 2023 regarding a request for voluntary conservation of water use.
Page 31. Discussion on this. Next letter, please.
Item F is letter from the Ministry of Environment dated July 14, 2023, regarding conditions of abandonment met for the landfill site.
Any discussion on that? Seeing none. Business from that. Next letter, please.
Item G is letter from Spelumcheen dated July 15, 2023, regarding a recycling program for antifreeze containers.
Any business arising from that letter? Seeing none. Next letter, please.
Item H is a letter from Alliance Corporation dated July 21st, 2023, regarding an invitation to the 10th Annual Resource Breakfast Series.
Any business arising from that? None. Next letter, please.
The next item is an email from James Cartmel dated July 26, 2023, regarding a request to waive Memorial Hall rent.
Any business on this? So I'm a little confused with this one, but it sounds like they're asking to waive fees for the rental, is it, of Memorial Hall?
I believe that's what it is.
Yes, that's right.
Your worship.
Yes, please.
It would be for a community Christmas carol sing-along with the gospel brass band.
So to staff, is this something that would normally be waived?
We have it set up in our bylaw to charge a $200 fee for the rental fee for Memorial Hall. Yeah, to my knowledge, I don't believe that this is, I'm not sure whether this has been waived in the past.
Can I ask a question, Mayor, to the staff? Isn't there a special rate for locals? And he is a local, Mr. Cartmel.
I would have to
Daily
review the
rate is at $50 a day?
Councilor Pass, you're familiar with? Yes. There is a $50 per hour rate for a resident renting the home. And then there's the damage deposit fee as well as insurance that they would need to carry.
So they're requesting, just to stop again, they're just requesting the fee for the rental of the hall, not the insurance, not the.
Correct.
So I would move that we waive the insurance for
fee, not insurance.
sorry,
Just
fee.
a question there, what,
Sorry.
before we vote?
Go ahead, Kelsey.
I'm just wondering if the gospel choir, Christy, do you know, are they a nonprofit group or?
I do not know.
So Councillor Pastor
Sorry, Councillor Fassio?
Yeah, through you to Councillor Biden, Mayor Wood. They used to be part, I believe, of what used to be called the Gospel Chapel. And the Gospel Chapel now has changed the different to religion now. But when it was a Gospel Chapel, it was Councillor Jackson will recall that we did have them in the parade on 2 or 3 occasions.
Yes.
And when we had our first Festival of Lights many moons ago, they were at the plaza with the carol singing, and they did carol singing one year for the Tourism Harrison for the big light up as well. So I think could be still associated with the church group. So I would agree with the waiving on that. That's my opinion.
Thank you.
So I would move that that we waive their fee for the use of the community hall. Do I have a seconder for that?
Second.
Seconded by Councillor Vidal. Any further discussion on that? Ready to call the question? All in favor? Waive the fee, passes unanimously. Any other business on that? No. Next letter, please.
Item J, we've already discussed. Item K is a letter from John Allen dated July 28, 2023, regarding a refund request.
45.
As fast. I'm going to call this one here out of order. Next letter, please.
The next item is item L, letter from Peace River Regional District dated July 31st, 2023, regarding BC Wildfire Service firefighting equipment.
New business arising out of being none. like to actually move that we send a letter of support. It's very important that we start looking at the provincial and federal government as more responsibility for anything to do with the BC wildfire fighting. Excuse me.
I'll second that, Mayor Wood.
Thank you. So, moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Facio, and asked for a letter of support. Any further discussion on that? I'm ready to call the question. All in favor of letter of support? Passes unanimously. Next item, please.
Item M is a letter from John Allen dated August 2nd, 2023 regarding correction of appointment.
Councillor Vidal.
Thank you, Mayor Wood. Although I'm not aware of the extent of Mayor Wood's qualifications and experience in firefighting and our crisis management, I do wish to provide to the letter writer, Mr. Allen,
Present.
my experience and qualifications, which I believe makes me is the absolute suitable candidate for the committee. I served 22 years in the fire service as a dispatch supervisor for 18 fire departments throughout the province, both career and paid on call departments. I've gained extensive knowledge in the incident command structure, mutual aid agreements, interface wildfire protocols, and coordination with social services, BC Ambulance, and policing agencies. I was also seconded to the BC Wildfire Service briefly during 2 summers to assist with their dispatch operations at the Coastal Fire Center in Parksville. Emergency management was also part of my role in my career, and have spent time in EOCs as the dispatch coordinator during major events. I would be happy to expand further to you, Mr. Allen, or any other resident, should you or any resident wish to do so. My appointment to the Kent Harrison Emergency Program Committee was endorsed and supported by council at the beginning of this term for the duration of the term. At all times, Mayor Wood retains the authority to declare a state of emergency should a situation warrant it, and would be part of the EOC team if he felt it was necessary and required. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Vidal. Further discussion on that? Comment on this one.
Your worship,
Yes, Councillor Jackson.
I read the letter and the letter here, the problem I had with this was that people trying to determine who's qualified and who's not. For the writer of this letter to assume that another council is not qualified, they don't know that. And this is the kind of thing that's tearing this village apart. And we need to have this stop. If you have actual facts that somebody isn't doing what they're supposed to do, that's one thing, but this isn't happening. And it's getting worse. Pretty soon what's gonna happen, people who really, really want to do a good job on council, they're not gonna run anymore because of what's happening. And sir, it's up to you, Mr. Mayor, to stop this. You gotta stop it now, because it's going on and on and on, and it's hurting this beautiful village. Thank you.
Councillor, the extent I know about it is the letter that's on here and the letter that was in the newspaper. So I have no idea what other comments are on Facebook, and I choose to stay off of Facebook.
I'm not on Facebook, I would never look at it.
Everybody knows. So the concern with this, where this comes from, is, and actually it's on the agenda here, and it's under new business 14A. And what there is there's two bylaws in place, 1985 and a 1994 bylaw. They're so old. I will be recommending that they come back for updating. In the bylaws, which are the bylaws which we presently have in place at this time, it is per bylaw that the emergency program coordinator, council representative is the mayor. The alternate is the deputy mayor. The coordinators' roles and positions are very clearly identified in these two bylaws, bylaw 448 and bylaw 610. So these are requirements, again, as per the requirements of two separate bylaws on our emergency procedures. And it makes absolutely perfect sense, as the mayor is the one that is responsible for calling the emergency event, that the mayor has knowledge of what's happening in the village. With myself not attending these meetings, I have absolutely no knowledge of what the discussion is or what's happening. It's unfortunate. I feel the same way when it comes to the Fraser Valley Regional District Board. And I brought this one up on a number of occasions, and the council refused to give the mayor the ability to perform his duties as mayor. I do not get to see what happens in the Fraser Valley Regional District in discussions and closed meetings. I can read meetings, yes. I will have some more conversation under the mayor's report, but I have been dealing with the province on at least a weekly basis for the last month now, as the province has declared, again, unprecedented drought and wildfires. They have taken every mayor gets together and has an opportunity to speak with the senior ministers live and a number of support staff for any concern that we have. I can't bring concerns that I'm not aware of. I know bits and pieces. Is it right? No, it's not right. And I would really urge council to rethink the way that they have followed. So again, I honestly believe that the people of the village of Harrison Hot Springs have a valid concern when the mayor is not even privy to that knowledge. It is the mayor alone that is working with the other mayors and the province. It isn't another councillor, it isn't a staff member, it is the mayor. And again, I'll talk that in discussion later. That being said, I would move that the mayor shall immediately be appointed as the village representative on the Joint Emergency Planning Committee with the District of Kent. So I move that. Do I have a seconder?
Wow.
Motion fails for lack of seconder. Order, please. Next letter, please.
Was the last item in that section. The next order of business is reports of councilors, committees, committee of the whole.
Councilor Passio, please.
Thank you. Very well. As you brought up the point of appointees on the regional district, that you probably do know, you may not know, but there's at least 8 councillors who sit on the regional district. It's not just mayors and electoral area directors. The last meeting that we had was 5.5-hour meeting with 3 delegations and 3 closed meetings. In case people think you shouldn't have closed meetings, there was 3 in one night at the regional district. One of the updates is the budgetary risks now to the communities in regards to the updated 911 transition.
which is going to be something that the regional districts will be dealing with and handing it through to all the communities through their requisitions. They're hoping to use the GCF, the Growing Communities Fund, to help at least for 2025. After that, it becomes a tossing the coin and how they're going to deal with the effect on this on all the communities financially. Due to the uncertain cost of building and operating the NG 9111 network, increasing 911 call volume and decreasing revenue stream, the long impacts on the FBRD 911 service area budgets are unclear. So that's how that stands at the moment in regards to that. We had a point-to-point preliminary discussion, presentation in regards to the homelessness count. This was taken on between March 7th and 8th of 2023. Teams of service providers and volunteers conducted a 24-hour point-in-time survey of individuals experiencing homelessness throughout the region. The results indicate continuation of the upward trend in the number of people experiencing homelessness in the region. This is the 7th triannual regional homeless point in time that's been surveyed, that's been carried out, and that is from Abbotsford to Boston Bar, which includes Kent and Harrison Hot Springs. Preliminary figures indicate that there was 1,081 individuals experiencing homelessness were enumerated in 2023 compared to 895 in 2020. This is an additional 186 people or 21% increase since the previous count in 2020. Prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, an additional 670 people or 163% increase since the first count in 2004 for those individuals. 1,037 engaged in the survey. Of those surveyed, 545 had stayed in the shelter on the night of the count. 52%, 250 had stayed outside. 88 spent the night in their vehicles. 93 stayed on someone's couch. 59 were in the hospital, and 2 individuals had been in jail on the night of the count. There was a notable increase in individuals over the age of 60 and a decrease in those under the age of 20. Nearly 70% of all survey responders identified as male. Chilliwack had the highest percentage of respondents who identified a female, 40%, while Mission had at least 26%. The first reading of the Regional Growth 2015 Growth Strategy was carried out. And just 2 quick figures here. In 2030, they're predicting housing unit growth estimates. This is, in 2030, they're predicting 1,170 in Harrison Hot Springs. Dwelling types, single detached, 64%, semi-detached, 18%, apartments, 16%. Employment growth in 2030, the estimate is 783 for Harrison Hot Springs. And the last one was the wind-up meeting for the Canada Day. There was the fire department raised $2,800. $2,000 of that was they've used to buy structural protection gear. Approximately 400 breakfasts were served. Thank you to the Harrison Resort and Spa. I already commented that a firefighter from Harrison was going to fight interface fires. In the pet parade, there were 48 pets, all dogs. It was an outstanding parade overall, and I have to give kudos to Councillor Jackson, who who looks after the parade, and it's probably the largest parade we've had in a number of years. Unfortunately, no fireworks. We hope they'll be there for next year. That's the end of my report, Mayor Wood. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Badell.
Thank you, Mayor Wood. I have no committee reports. I think nice that, you know, taking a little bit of a break over the summer. However, I do want to offer a PSA or public service announcement. The Harrison Agassiz Terry Fox Runner Walk is coming to Harrison this year on September 17th, Sunday, September 17th. Registration will be at the plaza. Registration starts at 9 a.m. and the run commences at 10 a.m. until 2 p.m. The route is very easy. It's all flat. Committee's decided that will encompass around the lagoon twice and out to the source and back. So there's no need to get traffic control through the RCMP or anything, and no traffic will be impeded. The planning committee has lawn signs. I brought some postcards with me today. Anyone can fill them out, send it back to the Terry Fox Foundation. The postcards ask you to include why or share how Terry's legacy has inspired you. I have also some posters, and we are also encouraging groups to form teams, groups and organizations to form a team and to challenge other teams in reaching fundraising goals. I do have some pledge sheets here tonight for teams. If you're interested, please see me after the meeting tonight. If you want to or wish to register for the run or to donate, simply just if you want to donate, please go to the website terryfox.org. The hashtag this year for the run is Terry ran for us. Now we run with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Jackson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I was at the July the 1st meeting, so no need for me to go over it again. Councillor Facio summed it up very well, except to say that we are starting pretty soon for next year.
Thank you. Next order of business, please.
Next order of business is reports from mayor.
Thank you. It's been a while since we had our last meeting. It was a number of weeks ago. There was a tree, sort of a limb on that broke off of one of the large old trees on Littlewood Avenue. It happened, I believe, around 10:30 in the evening. And a number of residents wanted me to make sure that we were aware of how quickly the staff showed up, cleared, made the place safe, and we're back the next morning and cleaned it up. So that was a kudos to the staff members that were responsible for that. And it's interesting, but it appears that the trees there, that they were able to actually put a shovel in the middle of the tree. It so badly rotted out. So there'll be a report, I believe, coming to council here in the future to deal with that. But again, just kudos to the staff. And I did talk a little bit earlier here, and I'm going to talk again. So the province has been, again, due to the unprecedented drought and wildfires, the province has taken it extremely seriously. They are having one-on-one meetings with all the mayors and again, with the support staff and the key ministers that are there. It gives everyone an opportunity to get updates of what's happening in the province as a whole. So it's a good forum for a for I guess some correspondence or some communication. There's, what is there, 160 mayors in the province here, and I think we're allotted something like maybe 10 minutes worth of time. So each one of us gets a minute. So you're really fortunate if you even get a chance to actually communicate. So I can say that on the last 2 meetings, I was successful in getting through to all the ministers. And I think it's really important for everyone here to know the evacuation route. I mean, I think that's one of the biggest concerns is what's happening with the evacuation route. So the province is taking it, has been made aware of our lack of an emergency route here. One road in, one road out, the number of people. The consequences of loss of life could be severe. It's a good opportunity to put pressure on the province to finally get this evacuation open. So right now, I believe the paperwork has almost been finalized. I haven't got confirmation of it yet. So the paperwork has still not been submitted, still was not submitted to the province as of just weeks ago. So we hope to work with the province and get them to fast track it. Well, I got some disappointing news to tell you. They promised they would get back to me and they didn't. So then I had to send more correspondence to the province and say, you haven't responded. So the province took another few days and decided to not respond again. So we were on our 3rd meeting. So I asked the province why we haven't received a response. The province, excuse me 1 second, the province formally said that they didn't receive, or that they thought they already had members in contact with the mayor, with the village on it, which in fact was not the case. They guaranteed by the end of the day that I would be in contact with the necessary staff to get this evacuation route, to get that going. Well, they did call, and there was a phone message, and the message was between them and our chief administrative officer. The chief administrative officer, just to keep a paper track of it, and I just want to actually read it out. So this is back to the province, and I think it's important that everyone know in fact who it is. So this is through Minister Ma's attention. And it says, thank you for the call yesterday. So I just want to follow up our discussion yesterday to provide my email and my phone number. My goal is to keep this process of establishing emergency evacuation route going because it's important to Kent Harrison and more importantly, the reciprocal benefit to Seabird Island First Nation. Great idea to bring Seabird into it. Seabird has been behind us and it's been supporting this. So it's important to bring the Indigenous component into it. So during our call, you indicated it's just not that easy. Well, I agree it's going to be a challenge venture. However, most good things don't come easy. With your ministry's assistance, I believe establishing a team of officials from all ministries, Parks, Forest, MOTI, private landowners, municipalities, Kent Harrison, Seabird Island, First Nations is the next step to complete this 20-year journey. Mayor Ed Wood, District of Kent officials, and I will make ourselves available at any time to ensure this extremely important route is established. I would be happy to share with the District of Kent's permission with your team engineering reports identifying this route as the most economic and viable option. Again, thank you for your attention. No response. We have a meeting again tomorrow, sorry, Thursday. I'll be bringing up the discussion again. Every single mayor online has been able to sit there and listen to our concerns. And I think I just want to backtrack, and I think it's an important thing to make note of. On the first opportunity that I had to speak with the province, as I said, there's only a few of us that get through to actually speak. And I don't know what the odds are, but when my time was finished, the next person on the line happened to be Mayor Pranger from the District of Kent. So the first words she came on was that she echoes Mayor Wood's support, and she urged the province the urgency to get going on this evacuation route and her difficulty of how many years it's been. So Mayor Pranger and I, we 2 times in a row here, we've managed to make it through. Again, out of all the mayors in this province, both of us are putting as much pressure as we can on the province. And I know that there's a letter that was received here for, I believe we got it under new business. Did we get that through? Sorry. So there was a letter that was sent, and it's regarding wanting to get information here on the evacuation route and the importance of the evacuation route. I was hoping to be able to talk with that at this meeting. I guess council has decided otherwise here. But it's all to do with the emergency route and really to make it a priority. I would urge anybody to write as many letters as you can to every provincial and possibly even the federal level. You write them to mayor, you write them to council, keep putting the pressure on, and I'll keep putting the heat on at the table. And let's get this evacuation route. I know there's a lot of other communities that only have one road in. All we're talking about is a length of road less than possibly 700 meters that just needs trees cleared, possibly a bridge which has already been potentially set aside for us under $1 million of cost. It can be done quite easily. It's on an existing road that's there. So I am going to again put more pressure on the province that this evacuation route is our top priority. I did actually would also like to just move on here, but still on the same subject here. And that was, there was a private citizen by the name of Ross Buchanan that solely put on a public, or he opened up it was to do with the interface fires. And he had a fire chief who has fought 2 interface fires in his career. He's a fire chief at this time. It's a public open house, again at Memorial Hall. It was well attended. I believe there was somewhere in the neighborhood of 120 or 130 people. I was invited to attend. I believe I saw Councillor Bidell and Councillor Jackson there. I'm not sure if anybody else was there on council. It was very informative. And it just makes us aware of the consequences and how quickly wildfire can come in. Even the best plans in place don't always work. So it depends on the equipment and the knowledge of the firefighters at the time. There was so much that we could learn from it. Issues with their communication. Some of the simplest things were some of the biggest failures in it. So I really, and again, I'm going to push again. I really think that if we work towards getting the full-time paid fire chief / public safety manager, so that we can start working on all these other things. But for Ross Buchanan to put this on, I give kudos to anybody in this village that takes the time to put a presentation on, and again at no cost to the village, and I thank him for that. Next item is, I just want to make note that tomorrow our OCP public hearing is at 7 o'clock, and that is at Memorial Hall. And to advise that the by-election has been called. I think nomination papers, staff can correct me on this, have to be in by the end of this week. And I would also like to state that Sergeant from the RCMP, I guess we'll be back for some time. So there is another sergeant in there. So I had the opportunity to meet him. His name is Andy. And I wanted to talk about the strategic planning meeting that's coming up in about 2 weeks. That's open to the members of the public to be able to also come in and speak. Excuse me. And then council will be going into meetings to discuss the strategic planning. It looks really strange when I look out my window and I see the bus ride go by. It's like, wow, it's amazing how long that's been. I can't believe that.
It's free.
I can't believe that we let that happen for so long. It is complicated how TransLink seems to have subcontracted it out. And again, I don't understand the process of it, but it's absolutely ridiculous for people to plan on their jobs and to have the bus system out for this length of time. But nice to see them back. 2 other items here. I just want to publicly apologize to Chief Leon from the Stehalis. I think it's important. It's subject to 2023 Canada Day welcoming conduct. So this letter here, I will be handing it off to Chief Leon when I meet with him tomorrow, and that's just important that I think that I read it out. So I begin by acknowledging that the Village of Harrison Hot Springs and the Stehalis share a mutual understanding that the Harrison Hot Springs rest on the traditional territory of the Stehalis. I sincerely apologize to you, your council, and your families for what happened at the Canada Day 2023 opening ceremony, and renew our commitment to working with you. There are many aspects to the work we must do, and today I'm acknowledging the valued partnership between our communities. If you wish, we will meet with you as soon as possible so that we can resolve and maintain our partnership. Sincerely, Mayor Wood, Scott Mead Council. Last item. It's unfortunate that mayor and council are still as divided as ever, and it doesn't seem to be getting any better. So I wish to advise that I have provided direction to our chief administrative officer, to our chief financial officer, and to our corporate officer. So in my opinion, to assist the peace, order, and good governance of this facility, please accept this as my official direction to staff to create a standing committee in accordance with section 141 of the community charter to investigate vexatious, without merit, frivolous allegations made against the mayor of bullying, harassment, and intimidation. And bullying, harassment, intimidation, and disrespect of the mayor and the chair. To investigate open versus closed meetings of council. And to report back, and to investigate illegal meetings of council. And to report back to mayor and council with the findings and recommendations. I will provide a list of the members for this committee following the present by-election in progress. Next order of business, please.
The next item is reports from staff. Item A is report of Chief Administrative Officer dated August 8th, 2023 regarding release of closed meeting resolutions.
Thank you, Mayor Wood. I'll just go straight to the, in the interest of time, I'll just go straight to the recommendation that the following closed meeting resolutions be received for information at the August 8th, 2023 regular council meeting. That Tyson Cook, in addition to his duties as Chief Administrative Officer, be appointed to the position of Deputy Corporate Officer for the Village of Harrison Hot Springs effective July 13th, 2023. And that Scott Schultz, in addition to his duties as Chief Financial Officer, be appointed to the position of Deputy Chief Administrative Officer for the Village of Harrison Hot Springs effective July 6th, 2023.
So moved, Mayor Wood.
So Councillor Facio, seconded by Councillor
Second.
Jackson, seconded by Jackson. Discussion on that. Do not call a question, all in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Next item, please.
The next item is report of Chief Administrative Officer dated August 8th, 2023 regarding reservoir access road rock stabilization.
The uphill rock cut along the reservoir access road is unstable and requires stabilization. A portion of the reservoir access road is the start of the Campbell Lake Trail, which many residents and tourists hike daily. In August 2022, GeoWest Engineering conducted a rockfall hazard reviewing along the reservoir access road and around the reservoir. To minimize hazards, GeoWest Engineering recommended scaling the rock cut and removing trees and shrubs along the top of the slope above the reservoir access road. In June 2023, the rock scaling and tree removal was completed. GeoWest Engineering conducted a rock scaling review once the work was done and identified large boulders and sections of the rock face that required stabilization. To stabilize the rock cut, GeoWest engineers identified 6 areas that required underpinning with shotcrete and dowels. GeoWest Engineering strongly recommends that stabilization work be completed before winter, as the heavy rain and freezing temperatures could cause rocks to fall on the road, and also trail, which could put utility crews, the public, and infrastructure at risk. Three contractors qualified to perform the rock stabilization were contacted to provide an estimate. Stabilization work is estimated to be in the order of $35,000 plus applicable taxes, which could be funded from water reserves. Recommendation in front of Mayor and Council that Mayor and Council authorize up to $35,000 plus applicable tax from water reserves to fund the reservoir access rock stabilization works.
Do I have a mover? Moved by Councillor Jackson, seconded by Councillor Lidell. Discussion on this? Lidell.
Thank you, Mayor Wood, through you to our CAO. Just for my understanding, the report talks about stabilizing the rock cut. So I'm just wanting to know what is underpinning with shotcrete and dowels.
So, so essentially there's some sections that have large boulders that are perched at the top of the slope. And there's a different methodology. Shotcreting will basically put like a wedge underneath the bottom side of a rock, or they will dowel into the, or like pin into the rock and then secure it back to the rock face and stable behind.
Okay, all right, thank you very much. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Any further discussion on this? Can I call the question? All in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Next item, please.
The next item is report of Community Services Coordinator dated August 8th, 2023 regarding committee report.
The Village of Harrison Hot Springs is looking to establish and reestablish a number of committees. The goal of these committees will be to provide input to council on matters that are related to the general subject of the committee. Each committee will have their own terms of reference to abide by, in addition to following the Village of Harrison Hot Springs Council Procedure Bylaw. There's some background information there from when these were first discussed, and the recommendations are that the committee report dated August 8th, 2023 be received, and that staff be authorized to post a call for committee members for the Communities in Bloom, Age-Friendly, and Environmental Advisory Committees to work with council representatives on notifying successful applicants and to schedule initial committee meetings.
Thank you. Mover. Moved by
Mayor
Councillor
Wood,
Facio, seconded by Councillor Jackson. Discussion on this? Councillor Facio.
thank you, Mayor Wood. Just a clarification from our Community Service Coordinator. The select environmental is fine. Now the communities in Bloom and the age-friendly, are they also select committees?
To Councillor Bessie. Through Mayor Wood, yes, that is the plan, to be select committees with a
So
timeline.
all 3 we select. Thank you.
Further discussion? Ready to call the question? All in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Next item, please.
Next item is report of Community Services Coordinator dated August 8th, 2023 regarding the Accessibility Committee.
Under the Accessible British Columbia Act, all local governments are required to establish an accessibility committee, develop an accessibility plan, and establish a tool to receive public feedback on accessibility concerns and or challenges in their community by September 1st, 2023. Section 9 of the Accessible British Columbia Act sets out the requirements for an accessibility committee as follows to the extent possible. At least half of the members must be persons with disabilities or individuals who provide support for persons with disabilities. At least one member must be an Indigenous person, and the membership must reflect the diversity of persons in British Columbia. Once the accessibility committee is established, an accessibility plan will be prepared by staff in consultation with the accessibility committee and with consideration given to public feedback. The accessibility plan will outline the activities that the village plans to undertake in order to identify, remove, and prevent barriers for people during their interactions with the village. The local community accessibility grants program established by the province of British Columbia offers up to $25,000 in funding to implement initiatives that advance accessibility in the community. The recommendations are as follows. That council authorize staff to establish an accessibility committee and put out a request for expressions of interest. And that council appoint one member of council to serve as a member of the accessibility committee. And that council authorize staff to apply to the local community accessibility grant fund for up to $25,000.
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Jackson and seconded by Councillor Vidal. Discussion on it? Councillor Jackson, did you have your, no discussion on that?
No, I think it's a very good idea, but I guess the problem we get into people. To be honest.
Any further discussion on that? So I understand though that you're looking for a council member to be appointed to this,
Correct.
to our community services coordinator. Is this something that's required as part of this act, or is this something because it's?
It's
yes,
not.
what-
It's not a requirement. It has its own regulations under the Accessibility Act. It was just meant to be an inclusion and to have a representative on the behalf of council.
Is there a council member that wishes to be on that? Councillor?
I would now suggest that we leave that for our further discussion after the by-election.
No, let me try.
At least they can advertise for the people.
We've already got the motion on the table, and that recommendation is included of that. So we kind of, I should.
I'll make an amendment.
Yes.
Okay, I'll make an amendment.
Do you want to make an amendment?
That the council appointee be selected at a later date.
At the same time when all the committees come back
Yes, yeah,
after the by-election?
yes.
You, Councillor Jackson, you moved that there? You're good with the amendment? Councillor Vidal? Yes. Okay, any further discussion on that? Please call the question, all in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Next item, please.
Next item is report of Community Services Coordinator dated August 8th, 2023 regarding memorial recognition policy.
Back to our community services coordinator, please.
At the Committee of the Whole meeting of January 11th, 2023, council passed the following resolution. That staff review the memorial recognition policy and report back to council on the current fee structure. Memorial recognition policy number 1.30 outlines the current policy and maintenance program in place. Excerpt here is policy. An individual, family, company, group, or organization may purchase a bench for placement on village-controlled land in honor, recognition, or memory of a deceased individual, subject to the following. The fee for the bench installation must cover the village's costs and the first 10 years of anticipated maintenance, which will be determined at the time of application. The current fee for a memorial bench is $3,000, which includes one plaque. The bench becomes property of the village upon installation. After the 10-year period, the purchaser will be given first opportunity to purchase a replacement fixture and renew their tenure. If no renewal occurs, attempts will be made to return the plaque to the purchaser. The recommendation here is that the memorial recognition policy report dated August 8th, 2023 be received for information.
Mover by Councillor Jackson, seconded by Councillor Passio. Discussion. This is just for receipt. On a question, all in favor? Passes unanimously. Just before we move on, I'd like to actually just make a motion is for call back when Councillor Buckley was talking about this at the time. I believe he was talking about possibly putting multiple plaques maybe on the same bench. So that there was an option to reduce the cost from the $3,000 because from the $3,000, in 10 years, all of a sudden you get $3,000 to keep your loved one's name out there. Can be a big hit for a lot of people. So can we have this policy set up in such a way that I would be interested to know how many people are waiting for benches to our community services coordinator team be able to?
Yes, Mayor Wood. There is no one on the waiting list right now. We do have some that are available as well. We do have some of the benches that are ready to be installed in new locations.
Thank you. I recall rightly that at the same time, I think Councillor Buckley was talking about some sort of way of reducing the their payment. And I believe our chief financial officer said that we could do that because they couldn't waive any amounts, like basically a loan component to it. Municipal act was that to our chief financial officer? Did that ever come up?
Yeah, to Mayor Wood. Yeah, the program intent is to just basically cover the costs of the bench and the anticipated maintenance. So that isn't really practical to go that way.
That was the reason. Does it make sense to go to a chief administrative officer? Does it make sense to be able to offer the option of somebody purchasing a third of a bench?
Administratively, I think that might be a bit of a challenge because obviously if we're trying to find 3 people that want to be on the same plaque at the same time, that might be a challenge. Seeing that we don't have a waiting list right now and there is opportunity for people to purchase a plaque with the bench, obviously. I would say that if there was a need for it, I would say that.
Thank you, Mayor Wood. Back to your question. We do, and people could add another plaque to the existing bench if they wish, if it was a wife or a husband or a son, whatever the case may be. But I've seen benches out there with 2 or 3 plaques on them, so they can add a plaque without purchasing another bench. Am I correct, Mr. Administrator?
Through you, yes, there has been, the challenge is that the policy has changed multiple times. So I'm not up to speed with the current policy, but I know certainly the wooden benches that we're pulling out and replacing with the newer, more modern benches do have multiple plaques on them. So I'm sure we could explore that if there was a request from the public. And again, for our costs, it's just a matter of covering costs for maintenance. Something to keep in mind is that the cost for the benches themselves, the capital portion of it, has gone up significantly, and we haven't adjusted our rates at all. So in the event that there was going to be multiple plaques, I would think that we want to look at working with the applicant and see if there's interest in purchasing the second plaque. I know the plaques are not very expensive, so I'm sure.
Council have any business from that? Next item, please.
The next item is report of corporate officer dated August 8th, 2023 regarding bylaw enforcement and complaint policy. At the January 11th, 2023 Committee of the Whole meeting, council passed the following resolution. That staff be directed to review the current bylaw notice enforcement bylaw number 855 and draft a policy guided by the BC Ombudsperson bylaw enforcement best practices guide for local governments. Staff has conducted a review of the bylaw notice enforcement bylaw and has determined that it does not require any amendments. A bylaw enforcement and complaint policy has been drafted using the recommendations set out in the BC Ombudsperson guide and is attached to this report for council's consideration. And the recommendation is that the bylaw enforcement policy be adopted.
So moved by Wood.
By Councilor Pascal, seconded by Councilor Vidal. Discussion on it. I would just like to make a comment. Nice to see this. It also I think it gives some good as far as the priority for enforcement, as far as how the complaint process works, the definitions, again, the investigation of it. It's nice, clearly, well written. I guess my only thought, one question maybe to the corporate officers, help me understand why this would become a policy and not become part of the actual bylaw.
Yes, thank you. You could have it as a bylaw if you wish. A lot of other municipalities have it set out as a policy. And in the Ombudsperson guide, the checklist is for policy and not a bylaw. The policy is more specific in terms of day-to-day action. It lays out exactly how a bylaw enforcement officer will respond to a complaint. It could be in a bylaw if council wishes. It just seems standard practice and as recommended by the Ombudsperson guide to have it laid out in a policy.
Thank you. Just further to that, I guess where my thought comes is that when you go on the village's website and you look at it, you can see bylaws, but we can't see policies. Like this would be a very useful policy for, I think, a lot of the members of the public. Maybe that's another administration issue altogether, is looking at that component of it.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
May I speak to that? Yeah, we're working towards updating our website, the complaint process. We're just having a challenge trying to deal with our website as administrator, but you'll see further changes coming on the process, and we're trying to get a lot more information onto our website. So that will be forthcoming.
Great, thank you. And I look forward to it. So that was moved and seconded. Any further discussion on it? Ready to call the question? All in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Next item, please.
The next item is report of planning consultant dated August 8th, 2023 regarding review of the land development bylaws and related policies.
Thank you, Your Worship. The issue is review of the various land development bylaws and related policies to ensure they are consistent, up to date, and applicable today. At the January 26, 2023 Committee of the Whole meeting, council passed the following motion that staff be directed to review and update the land development bylaws. Well, when we got into this process, we noticed quite quickly that if you start playing around with one bylaw, it would have a ripple effect all the way through 14 other documents that dealing with land development that the village has. So I apologize for the delay to bring the report back to you. But what we've got basically is overall, we need to update the language. We need that direction from council. For example, do you want to continue on with the coach house issue in the R2 zoning, in the zoning bylaw? Do you, under your development procedures bylaw, do you want to have the developer come in and make a presentation to you at the front end as opposed to doing it at the public hearing stage? There's these sorts of issues we have to talk about as a council. Also as well, we found that there's some different definitions that are going through all the similar bylaws. So we have to make sure that they're all consistent. And this includes the policies and the guidelines as well. We also have to look at updating some of the fees that are charged, your development cost charges, for example. The fees that are charged in there are in excess of 12 years in age. And the zoning parking in lieu bylaw indicates that it's $15,000, which at that time was applicable. But I think since now the volume of, or the cost of land has increased significantly, that figure is going to change. So as I mentioned, that there's 14 issues that we have to look at. That includes the development procedures bylaw, and there's a listing of some of the issues that we looked at or need to be looked at as well. And one of the other things we have to consider is a possible delegation of some minor development variance permit issues to staff. Do you want to do it? And how do we go about doing that? Because that changes the whole dynamics a little bit. Most municipalities say if the development variance permit application is less than 10%, that's delegated to staff. But then that changes the policy. Council doesn't issue the permit anymore. In that circumstance, they become the appeal body. So we have to look at changing the bylaw if that's the wish of council when we look into that point a little bit later on. The other one we looked at was the zoning bylaw, and some of the issues that we have to look in there, as I mentioned earlier, was the definitions. For example, simple little things like marijuana. When we first went down that road, that was the term that everybody was using, was marijuana. And then when the federal government finally passed their legislation, the word became cannabis. So now we have to go back and change the word so that we're consistent through all of our other documents. Section 410, changes to the COSEL requirements. Do we keep it in or take it out? Don't know. Accessory residential suites, 90 square meters. This is an old building code requirement and now it can be changed to whatever the village wishes. So there's all these sorts of things that we have to look at, and we'll leave specific direction from council when we get to that point. The campground, holiday park and mobile park bylaw number 481, 1988. There are two parts to this bylaw. One addresses the holiday parks, the other one addresses mobile home parks. Well, the courts since then have dictated that a stick-built house and a mobile home house is one and the same. They're a single family dwelling. So we got to make sure that we either get rid of that bylaw or we update it with more pertinent information. If we do take it out, then there's something that we have to make sure, because there's some engineering issues that are associated with it. We have to make sure that they're in the current subdivision and development bylaw. The Advisory Planning Commission changes shall to must, as this bylaw was created in 2012. So that's a lot of very minor changes in that one. Again, we have to look at the meeting agenda and the review process, and then determine if there's any updates that you want from that aspect. The Board of Variance bylaw 810, 2004, again, change shall to must. Review the definition of what we mean by the council, what we mean by the corporate officer. Remove sections 12 and 20 of the Board of Variance bylaw, because the council is not an appeal, or the Board of Variance is not an appeal body of any of the council's decisions. Under the appropriate preamble numbers, it's now section 536 of the Local Government Act and not section 899. The Subdivision and Development Servicing bylaw 1179/2022. Some of the issues that need to be updated is to make sure that the definitions are consistent with the zoning bylaw, change shall to must, and then ensure that the standards apply to the campgrounds. Development cost charges bylaw 960/2011. Some of the issues that must be reviewed include the definitions, review the section 6 exemptions if you wanted to. Did you still want to continue on allowing these types of organizations exemptions? Add a waiver for the DCC for nonprofit housing or rentals. And as I mentioned earlier, the fees that are currently inside the development cost charges are 12 years old. A new bylaw that could be considered is a development approval information bylaw, as per sections 484, 485, and 486 of the Local Government Act. This is a two-step process. You first designate inside an official community plan where you want the your DAI area. And then in the DAI bylaw, this is what we mean by engineer. This is what we mean by an ecologist. This is what they've got to do. These are the types of the information that we need, and we need them to provide it at their nickel. And it's the report, the final report is approved by this table, by council. So that includes things like the natural environment, the local infrastructure, the transportation patterns, including the traffic flows, public facilities, including schools and parks, and any community services. The other thing we have to look at updating is the community amenity contributions, where at this particular point in time, it's sort of, we go to the developer and say, we have this, are you interested in providing a contribution of some sort? They say no, end of discussion. Following the government's guidelines, even though that there is no legislation to support the use of community amenity contributions, the government guidelines have suggested that we need to put it into the official community plan and make sure that it's a very transparent policy. But again, there's nothing in the legislation that allows it to happen, but we're allowed to follow the provincial guidelines. I enjoy that part. The other thing we have to look at is the panhandle lot policy, which is dealing with subdivisions, landscape design guidelines, which are tied in with the new or the proposed official community plan. The subdivision policy and dealing with the referrals, are they up to date? Do we want to have this? This is more for the approving officer. This would be, who do we send it to? What type of information are we looking at for them to do? Excuse me. One of the other things we can look at is updating the tree management bylaw number 10,015/2012. We should look at creating a new tree protection bylaw under section 50, paragraph 8(3) of the community charter. We can regulate, prohibit, and impose requirements. We can't do that through an official community plan because an OCP is just a policy document. It's not a good sound. Excuse me. So this is something that we should be looking at. And then the final thing is the soil deposit and removal bylaw 1051/2019. We got it to the point, we were at third, we get one for final reading, and then the ministry came back and said that they were changing sections 55 of their regulations. They've since done that, and now we just got to make sure that that bylaw is in place or is up to date, and then can be brought in for council for a final review. The next step, your worship, as there are a large number of issues that need to be addressed, it is suggested that a committee of the whole meeting be set up for the fall to provide direction on certain bylaws. Once the information is provided, we will have all of the work plan and all the information in front of you so that we can start looking at moving which bylaws forward and which ones would be required for additional information. And the recommendation is, your worship, that council receive the review of land development bylaws and related policies report dated August 8th, 2023 for information, and that council add land development bylaws and related policy, review to an upcoming committee of the whole meeting for the purpose of providing direction to staff.
So moved by Councillor Vidal, seconded by Councillor Johnson. Discussion on this. Not ready to call the question, all in favor? Passes unanimously. Next item, please.
The next item is report of planning consultant dated August 8th, 2023 regarding appointment of residents to the advisory planning commission.
Thank you, your worship. The function of the advisory planning commissioner, the APC, is outlined below, and this is taken directly from the bylaw. And the Harrison Hot Springs Advisory Planning Commission does not have delegated authority and is advisory to council on official community plan and proposed amendments, zoning bylaw and proposed amendments, neighborhood plans, land use policy issues, and any other land use issues referred by council from time to time. With the resignation of past members of the APC has been unable to hold a meeting as they were unable to meet the quorum requirements of the Advisory Planning Commission. Advertisements were placed in the Agassiz Harrison Observer seeking new members and requesting that they apply with a letter outlining the expertise that they would bring to the APC meetings. Staff has received 5 applications as listed below in alphabetical order. And once appointed, staff will host a training session for the new APC. The training session will be held during the latter part of August is the plan. The hope is that the first formal meeting in the APC will be held in September 2023. During this meeting, the APC members can select their own respective chair. The recommendation is, Your Worship, that Mr. John Allen, Mr. Ross Buchanan, Ms. Judy Dufus, Mr. Alan Cameo, and Mr. Robert Gumont be appointed to the Advisory Planning Commission.
I will move it.
Amendment to the main motion, Mr. Mayor.
So are you going to move this one?
No,
Moved by Councillor Bidell, seconded by Councillor Jackson. Go ahead,
thank you.
Councillor.
Thank you, Mayor Wood. Yeah, I'd like to make an amendment to the main motion there with that, because councillors have not had the opportunity to review the applications which are carried out and closed to the confidentiality, that this be referred to the next closed meeting. I think it could be added to the 21st of August meeting.
I don't quite understand what it is you're looking for, Councillor Pasco.
Yeah, what I'm asking for, Mayor Wood, is council has not had an opportunity in the past. Commission, when names have been advertised and brought forward, they have been reviewed in a closed meeting to read the applications of the backgrounds of the people, which are confidential, and then it'd be up to council to select the members or all the members that they wish to be on that commission.
Motion is.
Motion is
Your amendment.
the motion to amend the main, that as council has not had the opportunity to review the applications in closed due to confidentiality, that this be referred to a closed meeting. I'm suggesting the 21st of August.
Councillor Bidell, you good with that amendment?
Yes, yes.
Councillor Jackson, you good with that amendment?
Yes.
Further discussion on that? So these were applicants were vetted by staff. And the council has had, and the mayor has had absolutely no involvement in this whatsoever. So these are the recommendations again from staff. Note that the Advisory Planning Commission consists of 7 members. There were only 2 members left. And a number, I believe it's 2/3, have to be from the village. So these individuals that are all on the recommendation, my understanding is that they all are from the village here. And I understand that there's a development proposal that's waiting for this meeting. So to delay it for another closed meeting just delays that process. So I don't see the need to proceed to a closed meeting to discuss it. Any further discussion? Seeing none, ready to call the question, all in favor?
On the amended motion,
That's the amended motion. Motion passes with the mayor opposed. Friendly amendment. Next item of business, next order of business, please.
The next order of business is bylaws, and there's nothing for this item. The next order is new business, and item A is new business from Mayor Wood regarding emergency evacuation plans.
Something I talked about earlier. These are our emergency procedural bylaws number 448. It was done in 1985. And bylaw 610, which was done in 1994. So these are the ones that basically give the power to the mayor and his duties under the Emergency Act. So it's a bylaw to provide emergency procedures in the event for the village of Harrison Hot Springs of a civil emergency or disaster. And that's where the bylaw clearly states it's the mayor who is the mayor will be the emergency program executive committee consisting of, the chairman of the executive committee shall be the mayor, and in his absence, it would be the acting mayor that's required under the bylaw there. And the second bylaw is bylaw to provide for the preparation of an emergency plan and the delivery of emergency services in the event of an emergency. This one here is also very outdated. And this is the one that identifies Councillor Lidell is the chairperson for that authority. Council have appointed that person of authority, which again contradicts the Emergency Procedural Act. So I'm really disappointed to see that, but anyway. So the recommendation is that staff review the emergency procedure bylaw 448, 1985 and the emergency plan preparation bylaw number 610, 1994, and prepare an updated bylaw for council's consideration. So I would move that. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Jackson. Further discussion? Councillor Vidal.
Thank you, Mayor Wood. Thank you for bringing this forward. I really do think that these two bylaws are very much outdated and need revision or a complete rewrite. Specific evacuation plan requires many layers. An important involvement and input, I believe, from the Kent Harrison Joint Emergency Program Committee. And again, as I said, creating an evacuation plan involves many layers and involvement with emergency services. So I will also request that the formulation of emergency evacuation plan be placed on the agenda for the next joint committee meeting, which is scheduled for September 26th. Thank you.
So the recommendation again is these for to be updated, and you're asking for an amendment to that? Is that correct?
Yes, I think it's important that it also be coordinated and discussed at the joint committee, Mayor Wood. And I will make an amendment that staff postpone drafting one until I've had the opportunity to present it to the joint committee.
Yeah, I'm going to, so you're asking for a friendly amendment. So I'm going to deny that. Let's just get this one here done. And if you want to create a separate motion on its own, then we'll present it after this one. I just don't want to confuse the two.
Okay.
So again, the motion on the table was moved and seconded. Is that staff review the emergency procedural bylaws number 448 and number 610 and prepare an updated bylaw for council's consideration. It's moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Jackson. Do we have any further discussion on this motion? Seeing none, ready to call a question. All in favor? Motion passes with Councillor Vidal. Do you have another motion, Councillor Vidal, that you'd like to make?
Yes, I'll make a motion that with council's approval, that I request that development of emergency evacuation plan. I will request it be placed on the joint committee, which is scheduled for September 26th.
Second that, Mayor Wood.
Seconded by Councillor Facio. any discussion on it? Seeing none. Call the question, all in favor? Passes, yeah. Next order of business, please.
The next order of business is questions from the public pertaining to agenda items.
Any members of the public have any questions?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, John Allen, 398 Hot Springs Road. I appreciate the suggestion from the lady about the crosswalks. But just for clarification, contrary to what Mr. Fassi was suggesting, behind flags permanently in the poles, what she actually seems to intend is that there's a bucket of flags each side of the road. And you pick one out of the bucket and wave it at the motorists to let them know that you're coming across the road and put it in the bucket at the other side. And I think that's excellent. I would be concerned about the cost of replacing flags that are taken as souvenirs. But it's a good idea. But it does bring up the issue of crosswalk safety. And you yourself have spoken at length about public safety. The crosswalks in Harrison are almost invisible because they've not been painted in 2 or 3 years. I would refer you to the north end of St. Al Street. When you come out of the Harrison Hotel, one of the busiest crosswalks, it's just about gone. What we need as motorists driving and what pedestrians need is they need clear crosswalks so that everybody knows what the rules are and what their rights are to be on the road crossing in front of traffic. So I would urge you to somehow, before the summer is over, to get some paint on at least the municipal street crosswalks. I understand that the crosswalks that exist on the provincial highways might be a little bit more complicated, but they're just as important, particularly the crosswalks on Lillooet Avenue. And we had already one very bad car accident and motorcycle accident in Harrison this weekend. We had traffic chaos, and a lot of it actually came from the fact that the traffic that was coming from Rockwell Drive couldn't get through the traffic light junction because there were so many pedestrians that were occupying crosswalks during the rotation that only 1 or 2 cars at a time could turn left and go to exit. So those are issues that I think we need to think about and address, but the first is to clearly mark the crosswalks. I'd ask council to, or yourself as mayor, to take some action to get that done. Thank you.
Thank you. Further,
Well, I have one other question. As one of the applicants for a vacancy on the APC, I'm a bit confused about what's going on. You had 5 vacancies, you had 5 qualified residents who applied, and that should be the end of the matter. So I'd like to ask, what can possibly achieve by politicizing this appointment? The 5 people who applied for the 5 vacancies did so in good faith, expecting that their voluntary service would be accepted. And to have it now questioned raises the specter that this is not really a fair and open and above board and transparent process. If anybody wants to talk about me, I'd rather do it in a public meeting rather than behind closed doors. And I am one of those people, and I don't think that I should be discussed at a public meeting or at an in-camera meeting. I think this is a matter of public interest. People have volunteered, 5 applied for 5 vacancies, and I'd like to ask why it has to go back and be delayed. Thank you.
any council member want to answer that?
Sorry?
I was just speaking to the councilors.
Oh, I thought you were giving me an answer.
I was asking them if any of them wanted to answer you.
Okay, thank you.
There's no answer to that. Thank you. Any questions? Do you have any questions on Zoom?
Anyone on Zoom? If you have a question, please raise your hand. No questions, your worship.
Thank you. Call for adjournment. Moved by Councillor Jackson, seconded by Councillor Facio. All in favor? Councillor Jackson? We are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have the one.
No, just.
Yeah.